To correctly use Google Bard, let's first make sure we have the right settings enabled. So click on the gear icon up top and enable dark theme because we're not internet peasants, and toggle on respond in real time for quicker responses. Then if you're using a personal Google account, head on over to extensions and make sure Google Workspace and YouTube are toggled on. I personally like to keep the other three toggled off because they sometimes activate without being instructed to, and that slows down my workflow. Extensions are not available just yet for Google business accounts for whatever reason, so make sure you're subscribed for future updates. Now that extensions are enabled, you can use the @ shortcut to bring up a list of commands for Gmail, Google Docs, Google Drive, and YouTube. At first, I thought this was a very gimmicky feature because I could probably perform the task faster if I just go to Gmail, Drive, and YouTube, but I found quite a few use cases that save me a bunch of time. Starting with the Gmail, I like to ask Bard to search for all emails related to one specific topic. For example, at Gmail, give me all emails that mention Spotify earnings. And Bard knows that I'm looking for emails that contain analyst reports on Spotify. If I try to manually search for those same emails in Gmail, I would see a ton of unrelated results, even if I use search operators like from, and quotation marks. I would also need to right-click open in new window to open multiple emails, whereas in Bard, I can open these emails in new tabs directly and just start reading. Another practical example would be confirmation emails. At Gmail, find all flight confirmation emails from this year. And usually these are annoying to find if you don't use labels in Gmail, but Bard finds them with no problem. Moving over to Google Drive, I'm able to input a very vague search query. At Google Drive, could you please find all documents related to SAT prep, a standardized test I prepared for decades ago, should be in PDF format. And boom, Bard understood the context and gives me all the PDF files I had saved ages ago. Whereas if I went to Google Drive and searched for SAT, tons of irrelevant results. And even if I filtered by type PDFs, still a lot of unrelated results like my resume. If you learned something new from this video already, drop a like, but if not, feel free to hit that dislike button twice to really make your point. Now, onto Google Docs. This is super cool. You can at Google Docs, input the document name in quotation marks, for example, EY Year 1 Self-Assessment, and ask Bard to only consider the content of this specific file in your answer. Your task is to take an action, in this case, analyze the file and share the top 3 takeaways. And Bard will pull information from that specific document and take that action. Pro tip, if you can't remember the exact name of the file, you can start off with at Google Drive, find the self-assessment for my first year at EY. Here it is. At Google Docs, please analyze and summarize the top 3 takeaways from this document. You can take this a step further and include a time frame in your prompt as well. For example, at Google Docs, what is the most recent position I held in my latest resume? And Bard will consider the last updated date when deciding which file to pull information from. Apart from the workspace commands, I also regularly use the image upload feature to distill important information. For example, if I were to present you with this chart, you might be overwhelmed by all the data points. Thanks to Bard, we can Command and Control C to copy this image, Command and Control V to paste it within Bard and input, assume the role of a senior business analyst with over 20 years of experience. What are the top 3 key takeaways for this chart? And we're told that the pace of innovation in open source LLMs is accelerating, the gap between open source and private models is narrowing rapidly, and we're on the cusp of a paradigm shift in AI. If we refer back to the original article, we find that Google Bard is correct. New research shows that open source competitors are catching up to their private model counterparts. Use case number 2 is something I do every day at work. I see a table with data in it that I want to analyze and play around with, but it's in a non-editable format like a PDF. I take a screenshot, paste it into Bard, and say, give me the data in table format. Be as accurate as possible. And now with one click, I can export this entire table into a Google Spreadsheet to start my analysis. This literally saves me hours every week. Use case number 3 is for those of us who use text-to-image models. I find an AI-generated image I like, copy and paste into Bard and say, reverse engineer the text prompt for this image so that I can use that text prompt to get a similar image in DALL-E. Bard outputs a simple prompt and a lot of additional details for us to consider. But even if I just take the simple original prompt and copy paste into ChatGPT, ChatGPT generates a pretty similar image using its integration with DALL-E. Some of you might be wondering at this point, what about PDFs? Can I upload a PDF file onto Google Bard? And the answer is technically no, but definitely yes. Meaning, although you can't upload a PDF file, there are two workarounds. Method number one, if the PDF is already hosted online, like this BCG report, you can simply paste the link into Bard and say, analyze this report, tell me who the intended audience is, and give me the top 3 takeaways. Be as specific as possible in your response by using examples from the report, and Bard will be able to take action directly. Method number 2, upload the PDF onto your Google Drive, and using the @Google Drive command, ask Bard to pull information and take action for that uploaded file. By the way, this video is not sponsored, but it is supported by those of you who subscribe to my paid productivity newsletter on Google Tips. Link in the description to learn more. Moving on to the YouTube Vision functionality, you might have seen other videos talk about how you can ask Bard for YouTube video recommendations. In my opinion, that's kind of silly because it's much faster and more accurate to just search directly on YouTube. But where Bard shines is if you want to analyze a video. For example, why did this Popcorners advertisement perform so well with over 5 million views, 250,000 likes, and over 6,000 comments? I can use the @YouTube command, paste the video URL, and input, analyze this advertisement and tell me who the target audience is, what the user insight is, and why it performs so well, and why the engagement level is so high. And Bard summarizes the plot, answers my questions, and expands on those insights. Another way I like to use the YouTube Bard integration is to take a longer video that I'm interested in, but I don't have time to watch. For example, this 2-hour podcast between Huberman and Goggins on how to build immense inner strength. I go to Bard, @YouTube, paste in the YouTube URL. First, share the top 3 takeaways from this video. And second, what are the 5 actionable steps I can take to build inner strength? Give me specific examples from the video. This allows me to quickly distill learnings from the video, and now I can just focus on a specific 10 to 15 minute segment to dive deeper into a particular concept. Celebrate small wins. That's actually a very underrated tip. In addition to these practical applications, let's go through some of the features that make Google Bard so user-friendly. For example, if you open up a new chat, you can and should click on these default options to see recommended prompt structures from Google. For example, this one, understand a complex topic. I just need to replace the text in blue here, briefly summarize this concept. Let's choose large language models. You're an expert on this concept and are able to explain it in a clear, concise manner, blah, blah, blah. Let's see what happens. And the biggest benefit to using these default prompts by Google is the more we read and use them, the better we get at writing and structuring our own prompts. Google is basically giving us training wheels for prompting. I can also choose to modify the response by clicking the icon here to make it shorter, longer, simpler, more casual, more professional.
How do you professionally say, I'm not accepting that meeting because it's a waste of my time?
Declining this invite as I don't feel my participation in this discussion is required.
I can also click the Google icon here to fact check the response by Google Bard. Green highlight means Google is fairly accurate, and if you see yellow, it means it's a little bit iffy. I actually click this drop-down menu here to view other drafts quite often because other drafts might give you a better format. For example, this one, draft 3, here are 3 key things about LLMs, right? Versus the original draft just tells you what LLMs are able to do. So it really depends on your personal preference. You could just cycle through the different drafts. If you prefer to interact with Bard via voice, you can click on the microphone icon here to speak your prompt. Give me the funniest and most hilarious dad joke you can think of. And after the answer is generated, click on the speaker icon to listen to the output.
Did you hear about the restaurant on the moon? Great food, but no atmosphere.
You know what makes this super realistic? Bard actually goes ahead and explains the joke. How atmosphere has a dual meaning. That's what dads do when no one laughs, right? Anyways, if you click on the share button down below, you can choose to either share your latest prompt and response or the entire chat publicly. And I personally like to generate a more informative headline before sharing the link with others. You can even find a repository of all your public links by clicking on the settings icon, your public links. Pro tip, I like to save prompts that have generated high quality outputs by clicking the 3 dots here, clicking pin, giving it a new name, adding an emoji, and clicking pin so that I can easily reference this in the future. If you found this tutorial helpful, check out my 10-minute summary of Google's AI course for beginners. See you on the next video. In the meantime, Have a great one.